Have you seen what they've done to your song?
In 1983, Shirley Caesar married the love of her life. 31 years later, she lost him and everything fell apart. Her stepchildren turned against her in a bitter estate battle. Fake stories about her death spread online. Even her own siblings accused her of using their mother's pain for fame. The woman who gave away 75% of her earnings to help others couldn't buy peace for herself. Her greatest tragedy wasn't losing her voice, it was losing her family. Shirley Caesar was born on October 13, 1938. In Durham, North Carolina. She was the 10th of 13 children. Her family was so poor that they barely had enough food, clothes, or space. Her father, James Caesar, worked long hours in a tobacco factory and still sang on weekends with a gospel group called the Just Come Four. He was known in the neighborhood for his deep gospel voice, but no matter how much he sang, the money was never enough for a house full of 8 girls and 5 boys. Shirley's mother, Hallie, was partially disabled, yet she found ways to feed all 13 children with almost nothing. Shirley grew up learning that survival wasn't about comfort, it was about sacrifice and strength. Everything changed in 1945. Shirley was only 7 when her father suddenly collapsed from a brain seizure. He died right there, and her childhood ended in that moment. With no income and 13 mouths to feed, Shirley felt she had no choice. She decided that she would sing in churches to bring home money. At just 7 years old, she became the one her family depended on. There was no time to cry, no room to grieve. Her voice became her job, her way to survive. No one gave her time to heal. Instead, she stood up and began singing so her family wouldn't starve. By age 10, Shirley was already shaking church walls with her powerful alto voice. People called her Baby Shirley, not because she was small, but because she looked so young and innocent. She had to stand on boxes just to be seen, but when she sang, even grown men wept. At 14, she had no stable home. She traveled across the Jim Crow South alone, waiting overnight in segregated bus stations, clutching a cherry Coke and a hamburger from her mother. Some preachers paid her 50 cents for singing all week, then pocketed hundreds, but she kept singing, stomping her feet, moving the crowd, turning every performance into an explosion of sound. That voice was all she had. Her mother's health kept getting worse. Hallie had a paralyzed leg and couldn't walk without help. At just 12, Shirley became her mother's full-time caregiver. She changed her clothes, helped her walk, and still found time to sing in churches to keep the lights on. She kept doing this for over 30 years. Even after she became famous, she never hired anyone to help. It was always Shirley, doing everything herself. Her mother's pain became her fuel. It made her stronger, even when it broke her heart. In 1956, Shirley graduated from Hillside High School and went to college to study business. But something strange happened during a typing test. She heard a voice call her name. When she asked her classmate if she had spoken, the girl said no. Later that day, Shirley heard the voice again, louder this time. It said, "Behold, I have called you from your mother's womb, and I have anointed your lips to preach the gospel." That voice shook her to her core. She dropped out of college immediately. Her professors were shocked. Her family didn't understand. But Shirley knew this calling wasn't from the world. It was from God. On August 15, 1958, when she was just 19, Shirley joined the Caravans, one of the biggest gospel groups in America. She walked up to Albertina Walker and boldly said she could sing all the parts. And she proved it. Her energy on stage shocked everyone. She didn't just sing, she moved, she danced, she cried. Her style broke every gospel rule. During her first recording session on December 30th, 1958, engineers couldn't believe the power in her voice. The Caravans became famous fast, selling over 50,000 records that year. But behind the success, Shirley was still sleeping in buses and skipping meals. She had already recorded her first song back in 1951, when she was only 13. The song was called "I'd Rather Have Jesus," but record labels rejected it. They said she was too young to understand pain, so she sold it herself, traveling through the Carolinas with a one-legged preacher. She performed in barns and tiny churches, earning $5 or $15 at most. The record sold less than 1,000 copies. Shirley thought about quitting, but she didn't. From 1958 to 1966, Shirley toured with the Caravans across the Deep South. They did more than 300 shows a year. Most venues were segregated. White gospel groups made up to $800 per show. The Caravans were paid $150. In 1963, in Birmingham, Alabama, they were turned away from 17 hotels and had to sleep on their bus. In Mississippi and Georgia, she saw police use hoses on black audiences. Once in Montgomery, bottles were thrown at them during a show. Shirley used these moments in her music. Her songs became coded messages for civil rights. Her voice became a weapon of hope. But by 1966, Shirley had enough. She was making only $75 a week, while male singers made 5 times more. She asked Albertina Walker for more control and a fair share of the money. Albertina refused. Even when offered $100 and 5% royalties, Shirley walked away. Everyone warned her not to. Magazines predicted she'd fail. Record executives said she'd never sell without a group. Even Mahalia Jackson told her not to go solo. But Shirley didn't listen. She signed with Hob Records for $50,000, the biggest contract ever given to a black female gospel artist at that time. In 1967, she released her first solo album, My Testimony. It sold 15,000 copies that year. Critics didn't know what to make of it. The songs were raw and painful. She sang about poverty, racism, and losing faith. Some called it too personal. One magazine even said it wasn't Christian enough. But Shirley didn't care. She was telling the truth, and people listened. Her honesty built a new kind of gospel audience. In 1969, she worked again with Reverend James Cleveland. During one church service, they improvised an entire song live. The crowd felt like the ground was shaking. That recording became one of the most powerful live gospel albums in history. Cleveland had worked with Aretha Franklin before, but he said Shirley had something different. Her preaching and singing were one and the same. Even after all that, the gospel world still treated her unfairly. She earned 30 to 40% less than men. Producers told her to tone it down. Contracts made her ask for male approval before releasing songs. Posters focused on how she looked, not how she sounded. Concerts labeled her as a special guest instead of a headliner, even when she was the main reason people came. But she kept going. She never stopped. When she got her first Grammy nomination in 1969, everyone thought she'd win, but she lost. Years later, it came out that the votes had been rigged. One of her competitors had a manager on the voting panel. That manager had money riding on the results. Shirley finally won in 1971, but the damage had already been done. The truth didn't come out until 2020. The Grammy system was changed completely in 2021 because of scandals like hers. Also in 1969, she appeared on The Mike Douglas Show. Most guests told jokes or sang soft songs, but Shirley brought the full fire of gospel to the stage. She sang, shouted, and used her tambourine. The phone lines lit up. CBS got over 3,000 calls in hours. Some people were angry. Others were amazed. It was the first time many white viewers saw the power of black church worship, and it shook them. In 1972, something unexpected happened that changed Shirley Caesar's life. She recorded a song called Put Your Hand in the Hand of the Man from Galilee. It wasn't a song she wrote. It was originally performed by Anne Murray in 1970, but Shirley's version was filled with soul and fire, and it won her a Grammy for Best Soul Gospel Performance. It was her first Grammy ever. But instead of just celebration, the award caused a storm. Many gospel traditionalists were furious. They said Shirley was turning sacred music into entertainment. They said it sounded too much like pop music. But Shirley didn't back down. She said she was still singing for God, even if it sounded different. That Grammy put her in history as one of the first black gospel artists to truly cross over into the mainstream. Even though people argued, it made her a name both in gospel and outside it. Her Grammy speech was unforgettable. In a room full of pop and R&B stars, she stood up and said, "First, I want to thank God." That simple sentence made people pause. It was rare to hear something so bold in a secular setting. And while some critics complained that she had won with a cover song, Shirley's performance was so powerful that it couldn't be ignored. It marked a shift. Gospel music had always been seen as something separate, but now Shirley was breaking that wall down. 3 years later, in 1975, Shirley went on tour in West Africa. What she experienced there left a deep mark on her. In one outdoor concert, more than 250,000 people came to hear her sing. Many had walked for days with barely any food just to see her. She wasn't ready for the poverty she saw. It shocked her. She said it reminded her of what she'd seen growing up poor in the Jim Crow South. On stage, she began praying aloud, adding words about hunger and suffering that weren't part of the set list. She didn't care. She just wanted to connect with the people. But the tour was full of problems. The money they made was paid in local currency, which they couldn't exchange easily. At one point, her team didn't even have enough money to fly back home. That tour changed her. It made her see ministry differently. After that, she brought global poverty into her messages back in America. But Shirley's calling wasn't just music. In 1969, she started the Shirley Caesar Outreach Ministries in Durham. It happened after a moment that she said broke her heart. She was having Thanksgiving dinner in Florida, eating well, laughing, enjoying herself. Then she turned on the news and saw starving kids in Tennessee. Their stomachs were swollen. They looked just like the children she had seen in Africa. Right there, she decided she couldn't just sing anymore. She gave 50% of all her concert earnings to fund food and shelter programs. That choice nearly ruined her financially. She never took government money. She refused. She only used what she earned from concerts. Sometimes, she even borrowed against future shows just to keep the lights on in her ministry. Her friends in the industry thought she was crazy, but she believed it was the right thing to do. In the late 1970s, Shirley did something else that shocked people. She started working with secular artists. Her 1978 album, Message for the People, mixed gospel with funk. It made some pastors furious, but fans loved it. The album sold over 1 million copies. That had never happened to her before. Her record sales went up by 400%. Soon, R&B artists started calling her for collaborations. Gospel executives started noticing that her style worked. They gave her bigger distribution deals. And even secular radio stations played her songs. Shirley had opened the door, and now others were walking through it. In 1983, Shirley married Bishop Harold Ivory Williams. She was 44. The wedding was huge, with over 100 people in the party. Her ring had 9 diamonds, one for each spiritual gift. But not everyone was happy. Her fans thought she was quitting music to become a pastor's wife. Some people accused her of turning her back on her calling, but she wasn't quitting. She and her husband became co-pastors of a 2,500-member church in Raleigh. It was a big step, and she was determined to do both, sing and preach. From 1984 to 1986, Shirley won back-to-back Grammys, including one with Al Green for Salem in 1985, and another in 1986 for Martin. That caused more whispers. People in the gospel world started saying the awards were rigged. Some believed her rising fame had more to do with popularity than purity. Others thought she had become the industry's favorite. She had now been nominated 17 times, more than any gospel artist in history by that point. Some said it was all political, but Shirley kept going. She didn't try to explain herself. She just kept singing. The same year she got married, she also nearly died. In early 1983, her tour bus slid on ice. She passed out and said she saw the other side. Paramedics saved her life. That moment led her to record Jesus, I Love Calling Your Name. It became one of the most requested funeral songs in America, but every time she sang it, she remembered that crash. It wasn't just a song, it was her survival story. In 1985, she took another huge risk. At a time when people were terrified of AIDS, her church started welcoming patients. Most churches stayed silent or shut their doors. Not Shirley. She made sure AIDS patients got hospital visits, help with funerals, and even home care. At that time, almost half of Americans believed AIDS was a punishment for sin. Church families threatened to leave. Some sent her death threats, but she stood firm. She told them, Jesus loves everyone. Between 1985 and 1989, they quietly helped more than 200 families. She never bragged about it. She just did it. By 1989, Shirley was honored as Artist of the Decade at the Stellar Awards, but she almost didn't make it. Years of touring had ruined her voice. She was doing 150 shows a year, while still preaching. Doctors found nodules on her vocal cords. She needed steroid shots just to keep singing. The Live in Chicago album that helped win her the award was recorded while she was in pain. Her acceptance speech that night was barely audible, but it brought people to tears. Even at her weakest, she gave thanks to God. In December 1991, she released He's Working It Out for You. The album had 9 tracks and ran for 44 minutes. It reached #1 on the gospel charts and even made it to number 95 on the R&B charts. This was during a time when gospel music was changing fast, but Shirley still led the way. Her voice was still strong, and her message hadn't changed. She didn't need to sing about herself, she just sang the truth. In 1999, she was honored by the U.S. government with the National Heritage Fellowship. That came with a $10,000 award and a ceremony in Washington, D.C. It was the highest federal honor for traditional artists. Shirley didn't use the stage to talk about racism or music politics, but her presence said enough. She stood there as a woman who had been singing since she was 12, now being honored by the nation itself. In 1996, she sang at the Grammys with Whitney Houston and CeCe Winans. They performed A City Called Heaven and other gospel songs as part of a medley. Whitney was exploring her gospel roots at the time, and Shirley helped her shine. They also recorded He's All Over Me with the Georgia Mass Choir that same year. It wasn't just a song, it was a bridge between generations. In 2016, something wild happened. A clip of her 1988 song Hold My Mule went viral. A DJ had remixed her excited list of Thanksgiving foods: beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, rams, hogs, dogs, and turned it into the Yoridur You Name It challenge. It blew up online, millions of views, dance videos, memes. Shirley was 78 and on a cruise when she found out. A young church member showed her. She was shocked. She didn't even fully understand what had happened, but suddenly she was famous all over again. That same year, she released It's All Right, It's Okay with Anthony Hamilton. It was a song about depression and emotional struggle. For the first time, she openly sang about mental health. The lyrics spoke directly to people who were barely holding on. It was bold, it was raw, and it hit home. She sang it live on BET's Celebration of Gospel, reaching even more hearts. In 2017, she got the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, her 11th Grammy honor. But it came during a time when cruel rumors started spreading online. Fake videos claimed she had throat cancer. Others said she was dying. She had to release a video to stop the lies. "Unless I'm a living dead person, I don't know anything about it," she said with a smile. She was frustrated, but she stayed graceful. She told her fans she was healthy and asked them to stop sharing false news. On July 4th, 2014, while the rest of the country celebrated fireworks and freedom, Shirley Caesar lost the man who had been by her side for 31 years. Her husband, Bishop Harold Ivory Williams, passed away at 93. They had married on June 27, 1983. She was 44 at the time, and he was already a widower. From the beginning, their lives had been deeply connected, not just as partners in marriage, but as co-pastors and music collaborators. He had played piano and sung on albums like Stand Still and Shirley Caesar Live. After his passing, Shirley found herself alone, not just in their Raleigh home, but in leading their 1,500-member Mount Calvary Word of Faith Church. Thousands came to honor him during a 2-day funeral. But for Shirley, the silence he left behind was deafening. The loss didn't just end in grief. In 2015, a painful battle began behind closed doors. Shirley's 2 stepchildren, Harold Jr. and Hope, whom she had helped raise, began fighting over the estate. Even though she had treated them like her own, there were whispers that they didn't want her to receive what they thought belonged to them. The argument wasn't small. It involved church buildings, personal assets, and the entire legacy of Bishop Williams's 37-year leadership of Mount Calvary Holy Churches of America. What hurt the most was the emotional distance that grew between her and the children she once called her blessings. But family pain wasn't new to Shirley. Back in 1989, when her mother Hallie Caesar died, everything changed. Some reports say it was actually 1991. Her mother had raised 13 children mostly alone after Shirley's father died, when she was only 7. Shirley had always been her mother's caregiver. They were incredibly close, but after the funeral, ugly family tensions surfaced. Some of Shirley's siblings accused her of using their mother's struggles to boost her career. They resented her fame and the money they thought she wasn't sharing. Even her tribute album, made to honor her mother, led to fights over royalties. Now, all 12 of her siblings are gone. Shirley is the only one left. For most of her life, Shirley carried another heartbreak in silence. She never had biological children. For years, she tried, she prayed, she went to doctors, but nothing worked. In 2000, she finally opened up about her infertility. It had made her question her faith and left her in deep sadness that she had hidden from her congregation for decades. She tried to turn that pain into purpose. Her church started programs for couples dealing with infertility, offering support and even financial help for adoption. She called her stepchildren her miracle children. But even with love, the pain of never being a mother in the traditional sense never really went away. In 2024, the world almost believed she was gone. Social media exploded with false claims that Shirley had died or was hospitalized with throat cancer. She was 85 and suddenly being mourned online while sitting alive in her Raleigh home. She had to record a video just to prove she was still living. Her voice shook when she said, "Unless I'm a living dead person, I don't know anything about it." The lies went so far that strangers started showing up at her house thinking they were visiting a memorial. Fake obituaries spread. YouTube videos used photos of other patients and claimed they were Shirley's final moments. All of it was false, but the fear, the shock, and the invasion were very real. The hoaxes didn't stop. In early 2025, another story popped up online. This time, it claimed she had collapsed on stage during a concert and had been rushed to intensive care. Even some news outlets believed it at first. Gospel pages filled with prayers, crowds gathered to mourn her again. Her team had to post more videos to show she was alive and well. It was another chapter in a string of vicious rumors designed to scare and confuse people who loved her. Back in 2018, Shirley faced a scandal that nearly destroyed her reputation. Someone claimed she had taken $2.3 million meant for the church and used it for herself. The story spread fast. It started when a former church treasurer allegedly leaked financial records. They claimed the numbers didn't add up and that money was being moved into private accounts. It was a shocking accusation, but in the end, none of it was true. An independent audit by Ernst & Young showed that 98% of all donations had gone exactly where they were supposed to. In fact, Shirley had even used her own money to help cover shortfalls when times were hard. In 2020, another blow came. This time, it was about her music. Bloggers and critics accused her of stealing songs like "No Charge" and "Hold My Mule" from lesser-known gospel artists from the 70s and 80s. They even pointed to an old track by Martha Williams and claimed Shirley had copied nearly 85% of it. At 81, Shirley was trying to revive her career, but now she was facing legal threats and sleepless nights. She almost walked away from it all, but legal teams proved the songs were either original or properly licensed. She was cleared. Still, the damage lingered. Then came the most shocking story of all. In 2024, a fake will started circulating online. It said she only had $2 million in assets, when everyone knew she was worth much more, closer to $16 million. The will left out key family members and included strange transfers of property to hidden companies. Most disturbing was a man who came forward saying he was her secret son. He said she had written him letters and demanded a DNA test to claim part of her estate. He shared videos, showed what looked like legal papers, and tried to get the court involved. Shirley was devastated. She called it a heartbreaking lie and warned about the power of social media to ruin lives. Through all of it, Shirley never stopped showing up for her church. In 2025, she's 86 years old and still leading Mount Calvary. Even though she stepped back from weekly preaching, she's still there, drawing more than 2,000 people each Sunday. Some drive in from Virginia and South Carolina just to hear her preach on First Lady Sundays. Despite health scares and fake stories, her energy hasn't faded. Her church is growing, not shrinking. It's what her members now call a miracle. She hasn't just shaped her own path, she's shaped others too. She mentored Yolanda Adams and Kirk Franklin, guiding them to stay true to their roots. When Adams was offered $2.3 million for a secular record deal, Shirley told her to turn it down, warning it could damage her anointing. When Kirk Franklin was offered $5 million to work with Sean Diddy Combs, Shirley said the same. She believed that staying honest in your faith was more important than fame. Franklin even said during his Walk of Fame speech, "Save some for the young people." Despite winning 11 Grammys and having a net worth of $16 million, Shirley chose a different path. She gives away about 75% of her concert earnings to charity. She's donated over $350,000 every year, helping homeless shelters, music programs, and ministries that served thousands. She still lives in the same Raleigh home she's had for over 20 years. She owns a small store in Durham, and every bit of profit goes to help people during the holidays. Experts say she could have been worth over $40 million if she had saved it all, but that was never her goal.